Greetings, I am Herbert Erpaderp, and I've heard there are some questions that require a Herbert Erpaderp to answer them. So here I am, ready to answer some questions. Begin asking, text-to-speech robot.
Trekan Beluvic said, do you have any idea why Killbot 4000 is the best in gardening?
Killbot is the best at gardening because it was arbitrarily decided that she would do the gardening, so she's become good at it through repetition, which I guess is a good thing. Keeps her distracted from the killing that I assume a Killbot would usually be doing.
Hetz is Gonna Hetz said, how familiar are you with Konami's Gradius series of shoot 'em up video games? Did you know that Plum has a line of scale model kits based on various shmups like Gradius, e.g. 1/144 scale Vic Viper from Gradius V?
It feels like this is the first time I've heard of Gradius games. It probably isn't really, I'm just old and crap and forgetful. I've not heard that there are model kits based on shmups. I'm not sure if shmups is a typo, but it is a funny word. Anyway, I googled to see what Gradius was like, and I definitely remember playing games like that as a kid, but they're not really the sort of game that held my attention for very long. So I would say that I'm very unfamiliar with the Gradius series of games, and I had no idea there were scale models of the ships from them.
Major General Bunk said, how do you distress after a shitty day? We all have our own methods. But at the time of posting I've had a worse day than most and I'd like to hear your tips. Keep on keeping on, Herbert.
In the old days it used to be alcohol. I definitely don't recommend drinking as a coping mechanism at all. Nowadays I try to avoid shitty and stressful situations to begin with. Obviously that's not always possible, but you do have to be mindful of when things are going bad and how to extract or distance yourself if possible. That kind of thing takes practice. If I do have a shitty day, I try to deal with it in a few ways. Depending on what it is, I might talk to somebody who's close and will understand. Or I go and do something else that I enjoy that will take my mind off of it, like a game or painting or even just listening to some good music. If something's got me worked up, it's good to take time, distance myself and then reevaluate. Sometimes you don't get time, but it's best to at least try to slow down and think things through, instead of making rash decisions or actions. I think it's important to maintain your calm. I like to take time and think, is this a me problem? Am I taking on somebody else's problem? Who or what caused the problem? Do I really care? How much do I care? Is there anything I can realistically do? What are the consequences? And is it worth me stressing about? As I've gotten older, I find fewer and fewer things are actually worth stressing about, and the best way to de-stress is to not get stressed in the first place. It's also important to learn how to say no when you need to, for your own sake. I don't know if any of that helps, but it's basically just being calm, mindful, and looking out for your own mental well-being, all of which does take practice.
SpanishBoy_OVEJ Dominican Republic said, do you ever sharpen your hobby tools once they become dull, and if so, how so?
No, I've never sharpened anything. The only sharp tools I can think of that I regularly use are knives, and I guess clippers for removing parts from sprues. Knife blades are cheap and it seems like way more effort to try and sharpen them than to just put a new blade on. I have a box of X-Acto number 11 blades that I've literally had for years and is still half full, and it cost about $10. I've never had clippers go dull, and if you look after them and don't cut metal with them, they should be good for a long time. So no, I don't bother sharpening anything. I don't think it's worth the time and effort.
Trekan Beluvic said, have you watched some game of the Women's Football World Championship, which takes place in Australia and New Zealand at the moment?
I haven't, and I had no idea they were taking place. I have no interest in football, either soccer or the one with the egg-shaped ball. The only interest I really have is calling it soccer when it will upset somebody.
Herchin said, who is the small white dog at the start of the train update?
The small white dog is Lola, my mum's dog. She's a bit of a demanding shithead, but she's cute, so I guess it's okay.
Hetz is Gonna Hetz said, who are some of your favourite scale modelling YouTubers?
I can't say that I've actually watched many scale modelling YouTubers recently. Unless it pops up in my feed and really catches my attention, I just don't really feel like it when I spend a lot of my time building models and editing videos about models, which does take up a lot more time than people seem to realise. It's like when I was playing music a lot and going to rehearsals for various bands a couple of times a week. After spending 4 or 5 hours playing music, I never felt like listening to anything on the drive home, if that makes sense. I've just never been the sort of person to have one singular obsessive interest, and I get burned out fairly easily. That said, I have been watching a fair bit of model railway stuff on YouTube, like Chadwick Model Railway and Ian's N-Gauge, but most of the stuff I watch is more, I guess you would call it more general interest. Off the top of my head, lately I've been watching stuff like Laurie's Mechanical Marvels, some of Simon Whistler's channels, Loading Ready Run, some of those Vocal Coach Reacts channels, Game Society Pimps and Kernel Failure. And that said, most of my viewing time is actually spent on Twitch. Okay, that's all the questions this month. Let's check out some of the modelling that's been shared over on Discord. Muse shared this little scene, which I assume is entitled Lunch Break at the Salvaged Gun from the USS Keokuk, which I'm probably saying wrong. This depicts the gun shortly after being hoisted from the ocean onto dry land. Seawater is still leaking out of the barrel. The model is in 30-second scale, and if you've got your eyes closed and can't see what's obvious, this is some really nice looking work. Muse also posted a backstory for the real-life inspiration for this diorama, and that can be found in the historical discussion channel on Discord. By this time you might have to scroll up a bit to find it, but do feel free to check that out. Jono31 shared this BTR70 early version, and there's a good dog in the background for scale. Woodpat. The dog, that is, not the model. This is a 35th scale model from Trumpeter, and I think it looks quite good. The weathering is nice, but not over the top, and I rather like the stowage. Well done. Peterenko shared this SHKH Dana? I don't know how that's pronounced, and I don't know how the SHKH is meant to be read. Do I say it shukh? Anyway, this is a 72nd scale model from Hobby Boss. Peterenko says it was a pleasant build, and he's pleased with the results, which I have to say are quite good. I like the muddy look you've gone with. I don't know anything about this vehicle, but it's kind of weird and interesting looking. As you might know, unusual vehicles always get a thumbs up from me, and you can't see that my thumbs are up, but they are. Very nice work. Trekan Beluvic shared this Soviet-built BTR-152, which has been painted up for his Syrian force in Team Yankee. This is a 15mm scale metal and resin kit from Battlefront. I was unfamiliar with this vehicle, but now that I've seen it, I think it looks quite interesting, and clearly it's been painted very well. Good work as always. Okay, so that's it for the models this month, and therefore the Ask a Herbert Erpaderp has now concluded. It will, as usual, return at the start of next month, so if you've got a question that only a Herbert Erpaderp can answer, I'm sure you can figure out where it goes. Thank you to everybody who shares their modelling work and asks questions. And of course an extra big thank you to my patrons and Twitch and Ko-fi subscribers. I appreciate you all. You can find links to Patreon, Ko-fi, and all of my other things like Discord and social media in the description below. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.